Hey everyone, and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm so excited to be sharing with you all my nose job journey. Yep, you heard it right. Less than 3 months ago I got a nose job, and I'm here to walk you through the entire process leading up to the surgery and also the surgery day. I found my doctor through a referral. A friend of mine got her nose job with him as well, and I really loved her results. And later on I found out that a lot of people that I know in Armenia got it done with him as well. So he's a very popular doctor. I traveled all the way from Canada to Armenia to get it done. But before heading there, I had to get a whole bunch of medical exams because if anything was off, I had to essentially delay my surgery, which I could not do due to limited vacation time and also responsibilities to get back to. So I got everything done in Canada. I took approximately 2 weeks off from both of my jobs, and I was completely open to why I'm taking this time off. Honestly, I didn't see a reason to lie because they would see my new face anyways. I will say that you should be prepared to explain to people why you made the decision of your rhinoplasty, especially if it's a closer friend or a family member, because they will all tell you, oh, you look beautiful just the way you are, which I don't disagree. I looked fine, but I've been wanting to do it since I'm a kid, and I thought it would give me more confidence, which it did, so I decided to go for it. In terms of which exams I had to get, and I do have to read this because I don't have them memorized, I had to get a total blood count, total protein, glucose exam, AST, ALT, urea, I don't know what that means, creatinine, sodium, potassium, blood type RH, hepatitis B and C, HIV, and finally electrocardiogram with interpretation. There were a few others that I remember I was told to do over the phone. I don't have them written anywhere. Luckily in Canada, healthcare is free. Well, not free, you do pay taxes, but that's another story. I got pretty much 95% of my exams done in here. I couldn't get the hepatitis C done. They just wouldn't request that exam. There was another exam that you had to go through before you get to that. If that tests positive, I don't remember again the details, but that was one thing I had to get done when I actually arrived in Armenia. You did have to get all these exams in 3 weeks before your surgery. Well, within 30 days of your surgery, but I wanted to be safe, and I said, okay, let's do 3 weeks so it doesn't get too old in case there's any delays. I just didn't want to go through, doing all these exams again. Thankfully, everything was okay, so I only had to give one exam when I arrived. I had to mentally prepare myself for the surgery as I was really scared. I'm scared of needles, like really scared of needles. So the fact that I had to go under anesthesia and get the whole thing done, I just could not wrap it around my head. At the same time, I was really excited to visit Armenia, and I think that my excitement overtook my fear, which was a good thing that I needed. I flew through Frankfurt because there are no direct flights from Toronto to Yerevan. We spent about 12 hours there in Frankfurt. It was a beautiful city, and we were so tired that we only got to spend like 3 hours outside, and the rest of it we just spent sleeping, showering, and just waiting to get on our next flight. The noodle on these ones too strong.
Bitte schenken Sie.
To Armenia, and we arrived approximately at 4 a.m. My aunt and my cousin were there to pick us up. Side note, if you are going to Armenia and you don't have an Armenian citizenship, do get a visa before your arrival. It's super easy to get it online. It takes like a couple of days, but I do not recommend you getting a visa upon arrival because things get really difficult, but I'm not going to get into that right now. That's a story for another time. We're so happy to be there, and even though our check-in time wasn't until 3 p.m. and my aunt insisted that we go to her place, I really wanted to get some sleep, so we arrived at the hotel in hopes that they would check us in. If not, we would just come back later, but they did check us in, thankfully, and we were able to get in and get some sleep because we had a very busy day ahead of us. So we got checked in approximately at 5 a.m. and we were so happy. We slept, we showered. Same day, I had an appointment with my doctor for a consultation. I do want to say that before I went to Armenia, I did have an over-the-phone conversation with my doctor about what to expect and just, talk to him and see who is going to be operating on my face, which really put me at ease because I wanted to feel that he actually cared about my result, which he did show over the phone that he did before I flew all the way for a surgery to be done. During the appointment, he showed me how my nose would look like after the surgery, and I also pulled up my 2 albums on Instagram that I've been creating for the past months before my surgery of how I want my nose and how I do not want my nose, and he very quickly gave me a reality check. Pretty much said what I want will not work with my anatomy or physiology. I don't know. English is not my first language, so please forgive me. My skin is really thick, and he pretty much compared it to building something or doing a painting, but then putting a carpet over it. So I couldn't really get exactly what I wanted, but I'm still very happy with my results, and he knew exactly what had to be done. After I saw my plastic surgeon, I met with the anesthesiologist, and she was a bit intimidating, but honestly I don't mind it because she was not there to entertain me, she was there to keep me alive, so I was quite happy that she was so serious about her job. Lastly, I gave that one exam for hepatitis C that I couldn't get done in Canada, and I paid for it on the spot. It was like $10, so not bad at all. I was told not to eat anything 8 to 12 hours before my surgery, which I took really seriously, and I did not eat for like 18 hours, and I also didn't drink any water even for like 8 or 12 hours, I can't remember exactly, but to a point when I arrived to the surgery day, I was dehydrated and they had to give me some liquid. 2 weeks before my surgery, I was also told to not drink any Advil and not eat raspberries, which was very specific, but I think it had to do with it interfering with either me getting the anesthesia or the recovery time afterwards. But I did my own research, and I made sure that I follow the proper diet that I read online so that my recovery time is much smoother. I arrived about 30 minutes before before my scheduled time. I love punctuality, but only when it comes to appointments. If I'm going to a Latin party, I know better not to arrive early, otherwise I'll be setting up the tables and blowing the balloons. I was with my aunt and my fiance, and I was called into a room where I was given a gown and told to change into it. The nurse also helped with braiding my hair and also removed my jewelry. I said goodbye to my aunt and fiance, and I was in such positive spirits when I was leaving that hospital room.
Okay. En el nombre del Padre, del Hijo y del Espíritu Santo.
I took the elevator to the surgery floor, and they brought me to the surgery table. I lay down, they hooked me up with the needle, and that is where my positive spirits just left my body. I was shaking. The nurses came up to me, they're like, "Are you cold?" I'm like, "I am not cold." I was just terrified. Thankfully, the anesthesiologist walked in shortly after, and very surprisingly, she was so calm. And she put something over my mouth and she said, "Imagine you're on the beach, the sand is really warm, you're walking." And that's it. That's the last thing I remember. The next thing I remember is waking up and the surgery was done, and I just could not believe it. The first thing I remember saying is, "It hurts, it hurts." And shortly after, they gave me painkillers through that needle in my arm. And shortly after, I did not feel any pain whatsoever. Then I was telling the nurses that I'm thirsty, so they brought me water. And I just remember telling them that they're so nice, they're so kind, and I just felt so well taken care of. And at that point I was just so emotional. You're in a vulnerable spot and you're pretty much being taken care of by other people, so you can't help but to feel really emotional in that moment. They took me in a hospital bed to my room where I was supposed to stay overnight. When I arrived, my aunt, my fiance, and my mom's friend, who is like a second mom to me when I was growing up, were there, and I was so happy to see them. Nurses told me not to move for 2 hours, which I didn't, but shortly after I started complaining about the pain that was coming in the section of the needle in my arm. I remember my fiance was being so nice, taking care of me. When he called his mom to show me on video, I remember just getting so emotional and pretty much crying from gratitude of just him being beside me. I do not recommend crying after you get out of a surgery, especially when you have stitches that need to heal. You know, that salty water going on it, it's never a good idea. I was telling her how nice he is, how he is treating me, and how lucky I am to have him beside me. I promise I say those things even when I'm not under the anesthesia, minus the crying. Sometimes the crying. Nurses were monitoring me really closely when I got up for the first time after my surgery to use the bathroom facilities. I was being fed yogurt and juices, but honestly I didn't have much of an appetite. A childhood friend of mine came to visit, and I was so happy to see her. It was really comforting to have a familiar face with you.
Why is it video? Sagen wir mal die Nummer.
Rồi, cái này chị. Yes, I love
It's the dance. Go. Buddy.
My aunt and my second mom brought the entire grocery store with them, and I remember begging them to stop bringing things. I don't mean to be ungrateful, but I'm Armenian, and in the Armenian culture, they just want to give and be so hospitable. So if you don't tell them to stop, they will not stop. Even when you tell them to stop, they are not stopping. So I had to make a point to say stop buying me things because this is just gonna go to waste. My surgery was around 9 a.m. and it took approximately 1.5 hours. And it was already 3 p.m. when I asked the nurses to remove that needle that was so painful from my arm. They told me they couldn't do that, so I asked them what can I do to have this needle removed from my arm because it was actually hurting me more than my nose. I can have it removed is when I get discharged, which is completely fair because just in case if I'm in pain overnight, that's just an easy access for them to give me painkillers. But it was really painful, so I wanted it off of me. By the way, if you're new here, I would really appreciate if you like this video and subscribe to this channel. I'm giving this thing called YouTube a try, so your support is greatly appreciated for me to keep going. I feel like I'm begging. I made the decision that I will not be spending the night at the hospital, and I made it my entire mission to get discharged. Anytime a nurse would walk in, I would tell them that I'm feeling so good and I just want to go home. One of the nurses showed me how to clean my nose and moisturize my nose, and they also gave a prescription to my family to buy that I had to take for the next 10 days. The nurses expect the tip, so do have some change with you, maybe $30, exchange that to the local currency and split that amongst the nurses that help you out throughout your entire hospital stay. It's not a must, but I do recommend it. It's like going to the Dominican Republic to an all-inclusive resort. You don't have to tip, but if you do, your experience will be a lot better. Around 4:30 p.m. the doctor came to check up on me, and I took that as an opportunity to express that I do want to get discharged from the hospital. He agreed. He said the only reason for me to stay in the hospital is if I didn't feel comfortable enough going home and I wanted to be under their observation for the first night, or if there were any complications in the surgery, then they would of course recommend you staying. But if I was feeling comfortable to go home, they felt also comfortable discharging me. I told them I'm good, and by 5:30 p.m. that day, I was discharged. It was like doing a 9 to 5 shift at the hospital, except for, nurses do longer shifts. But I was so happy to be going back to the hotel. I asked the hotel for, I can't remember, 4 or 5 extra pillows so that I could make myself comfortable and sleep on my back without disturbing my fiance or my fiance disturbing me. That is it for part 1 of my nose job journey. In part 2, I will talk about my experience after leaving the hospital, the aftercare, and how I've been adjusting to my new nose in the past 3 months, and also how it has been getting back to work with this new nose. I know this has been a lot of information, so if you have any questions, please leave them down in the comment section and I'll be happy to answer them for you. If you want to tell me that my before looked better, just don't. But if you really think so, let me know, but don't. Please don't. Thank you guys for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and like this video for part 2. And do let me know down in the comments if you have ever thought about getting your nose done. See you next week.